Hello, and welcome to another Block Chat. Today it's Denis Petrovcic and Makram Hani from Blocksquare again. But today we're talking about a subject that we've talked about before. We're going to talk about today more extensively. It's the idea of tokenizing for projects that do not exist yet or for projects that do not exist and will never exist. It's actually the idea of tokenization, the opportunity and the risks that come with it. The risks that come with any facilitating or any liquid generating method or technology. The idea of humans abusing it by intention or without an intention. Dennis, how are you?
Hi, Makram. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you now. I can see you. Very good.
All right. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Finally, after some time, we are
Yeah.
back together on the block chat.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
very excited. How are you? How are you, Makram?
Just amazing. Thanks, God. All great.
All right. Okay. Is it how are things in Dubai, by the way? All fine?
Dubai is perfect, man. First, it's cooler than
Yeah.
Europe as it seems this year in the summer. Today, it's
Okay.
35 degrees where I sit. I heard
Okay.
from a friend in Italy yesterday that it was 36 where he stays in Italy. So
Okay.
happy us. And by the way, my family were in Lebanon, and then we were somewhere else before, and it
Okay.
was hotter than Dubai. We were doing some activity, and it was as if you had a hair dryer in your face
Okay.
blowing all the time. So we hope love and peace and coolness for everyone in the world, especially where we are today. And how are you?
Good, good. Actually, here in Ljubljana, it's raining right now. So it was, like you said, it was there were some heat waves, so the temperatures rose, I think, even more than in Dubai. But it was overall a nice summer. And as my grandmother used to say, the first rain in August is basically the end of summer. So I guess that's what's happening after today.
Enjoy what's left of
Um,
it.
Exactly. So, um, very interesting topic that we're starting today. And I think this is something that um, came naturally because, we talk with a lot of parties, right? About tokenizing real estate. And there's a lot of misconceptions on the market. There's people who currently don't understand the capabilities or the limitations of tokenization. Um, a lot of times the expectations are more in line with the overall promise of tokenization. So I really believe that in the future, any real estate asset, any real estate project, or anything will be easy to finance as long as there's track record in the past. So I don't think it's going to replace or change how things are done traditionally. It just is going to be faster, right?
It doesn't
So
have to change how things are done traditionally. It can make it better, but there's also risks that it can make it riskier. The limitations that should exist in, and as you said, we talk to partners all the time, and we talk to people who want to tokenize, and we sometimes meet people who want to really tokenize thin air. And we're an infrastructure provider. We're no one's dad, and we are not a regulator, and we're not supposed to do so. And that's why most of the time in our meetings we say, guys, we're not the police. Yeah. So we need to understand our position and act accordingly. But at the same time, we have an ethical and a professional duty. Although it's not a legal duty most of the time, it's a professional and ethical duty that if we're giving our software and our ecosystem for someone, they're restricted to some basics that makes sense for everyone. That if my nephew is using it and creates a marketplace, and my father jumps on, uh, wonder how would my father react with a marketplace and the tokenized property, but still jumps on, he's able to see at least something half decent. And because tokenization allows people to do things that have never been possible this easy and this simple, it's dangerous. The dangers are starting by the ability of people to defraud others. Again, and here it's a fine line, intentionally or non-intentionally. Some people, and we meet sometimes people who have dreams of raising capital and building developments, and we know the risks and the difficulties that can face them, and that can put all of them and the investors at big risks. So if you want to raise money for an under construction or a non-developed project yet, you need regulation, in my opinion. Now, you need restrictions, and restrictions come from authorities and regulation that should make sure that customers' money, other people's money are safe. If the regulation does not exist, and if people raise money and utilize it in a non-wise way, it will seriously affect um, how investors interact with ecosystems in the future, because it will affect that whole ability to create something decent and something that is interesting and trustworthy. Where do you see, Dennis, the biggest pitfalls? Again, we've been talking with plenty of people and with plenty of partners, and we're seeing what's happening in the market out there. Because, and we're asked many times, why are you not subscribed to all of this hype? Why aren't you? Why don't you have a $2 billion project somewhere that have never happened, land not acquired yet, on your marketplace, and have a big marketing campaign for that? Because look, if you have a 2 billion project that haven't happened yet, you can afford 100 million in marketing on it, obviously, because all the money that you'll be raising you can throw on marketing. Where and how?
I, I think it's like it's not just the big dreamy projects, right? One is the dreamy projects that I think you mentioned recently on social media. You know, the importance of building for governments or for municipalities to building landmark um, projects that maybe don't have a financial viability, but in the short term, or just looking at the project itself. But when you kind of put that on a larger plot, that starts to make sense, because now you have a project that can drive value for the real estate around surrounding it, right? So that's one type of projects, and usually those projects are being built by those who have a financial interest in bringing value to the land around it. So usually this is projects that are kind of initiated by governments, right? Or government connected entities, right? Because they want to create an economy around that landmark building that was not previously there. And Dubai is a great example of doing so. There's plenty of landmark projects that Dubai has done in the past, but it's not just Dubai. You have this is something that has been done before. Dubai was the Dubai of today. And you have the Eiffel Tower, for instance, in Paris. You have the Opera House in Sydney, and there's many other landmark buildings that drive value to the surrounding real estate projects. But then you have also the same with very small properties, right? And there's a case where you could have, undermanaged property that is not really being leased out, or it is occupancies. There's a lot of vacancy. Maybe there's a portfolio that's really mismanaged. And again, it's not raising funds for a dream, but it's liquefying or liquidating a portion of the value that it has already been created. But because of mismanagement, that value is overvalued on the token market, let's say. And if proper due diligence would be done, then people would see, hey, the underlying is actually not, that's not the real value for it. So I think bringing more transparency, more data. What with Blocksquare, what we're trying to achieve with Tokenlytics as a product, um, is key for people to be informed about, what they're buying into. Um, I think with tokenization, when it comes to development projects, there will need to be new standards how money is being raised, and smart contracts make a perfect piece of ink, or can be developed in a way where money raised is locked in, and it gets released only upon milestone achievements, and that's not something that's really hard to do. The problem is right now there's not sufficient capital for this type of developments. If you come up to us and you say, and we get this a lot, right? We get a um, friend or somebody who knows us, and they have a friend who has a development company who has a great project, right? And it's a huge project, and we get those, I think, many times every year since 2017 when we started Blocksquare essentially. And it's a maybe 10 million development, or a 50 million development, or a 100 million development. It doesn't really matter, because they don't have the market, they don't have the demand. And the market, maybe as a whole, could provide that demand. But the question is, what's the risk? What's on the other side, the risk? And if you have an alternative in treasuries and in staking stable coins that returns just slightly less, and it's liquid, would you take the risk? Probably not. So the returns that I would expect from investing in a development project is more or less in line with what the developer is getting, right? So whatever they're making on that deal, I should make as well.
or
So,
more, or more.
or more, or
Yeah.
maybe, or maybe even more. It doesn't need to be the same, right? So I have never encountered any developer who would be willing to offer more or the same amount to token investors so far. I have not. Maybe you have, but I have not
You
spoken
know my opinion
with
about
one.
that. I believe most of you out there trying to tokenize real estate are not putting forward a decent product for someone to buy. And I would tell you the following: I don't believe your product should be purchased and sold in a conventional manner at those terms, and thus mostly it shouldn't be sold in a tokenized manner. Guys, you need to understand, if somebody has $10,000, not $1 million, it doesn't mean he should buy rubbish with it. He should be buying garbage with it. He should settle for that. If your project at best offers 5% projected or 4% projected, there is risks attached to your project. If somebody is starting his life, it doesn't mean he's stupid. And if you have people who jump on, and we hear this all the time, on chain there is no enough liquidity for real estate tokenization and for big projects, and I totally disagree. And unfortunately my disagreement will, although has been proven right multiple times, will stay a theory until someone comes out and offers $1 billion of a really good product to people. And we've done it on a smaller scale, obviously, because we don't have $1 billion of real estate yet. But hopefully in the future we will, and we will offer that. When you offer a reasonably decent product, it sells. It's been proven over and over again. I'll give you examples of $1 million projects that have been offered. I can't give you the example yet of $1 billion, as I said. But on $1 million scale, a project that's decent with good returns that has been offered, I track that because I buy into those projects and I always see more demand than supply. And I always see that people want more of that, and there's not enough offered. So whoever is putting a product out there, hoping that people will jump on it. And yes, someone who has $10,000 may take a small compromise or will have slightly less ambitions on returns and on dimensions of return than somebody investing 100 million. We understand that. But offer a decent product. If you're offering an under construction development, so much risk attached to it, not fully funded, no zero gap funding, you don't have a development experience, you're not related in the US, you're not EMAR in Dubai or the world, you're not any of those. You're not Skanska in Europe. If you're none those and you're offering that, huge risk is attached to your development. And you're expecting them to settle at 5 or 6%. Why? Uh, isn't this
Because a lot of times it's people compare this to people compare this to the alternatives, and their alternative in their mind is, at least here in Europe, for instance, it's, well, I go to a bank and the interest rates, this is the interest rates, right? And for project financing, this is the interest rates, but they don't take into account what it means, right? When you go and you take project financing, a lot of times you have a very strict deadline. So you need to build, sell within 2 years, let's say. So if you don't do it, maybe you can ask for an extension. It's going to cost. Maybe you get, so you have the risk of the market turning around in those 2 years. And then you come to a situation where the supply you've produced it cannot sell at the price you projected. So your returns are not going to happen. So what do you do then, right? The bank is going to force you to sell even at a loss, perhaps, to your capital. So that's the risk you're taking, right?
You lose your project. In conventional word, you lose your
Exactly.
project. And if you are tokenizing a project and want to compare it to something, don't compare it to conventional
Yeah.
financing. Compare it to MES financing.
Exactly.
Remember, MES financing is secured at least with an asset. At the same time, there is a confirmed return on it. Here, you're giving them a variable return, so it should be higher than the fixed confirmed return of MES funding. Now tell me, how much do you pay for MES funding? And for those who don't know, MES funding is mezzanine funding, is funding that comes the tranche between you
is a lot
achieving
of
your
times
zero
unsecured
funding
debt,
from.
right? And because of the risk of being unsecured debt, it has a higher fixed return. It might have even a kicker on the equity side. It depends on how it's structured. So it can go more towards junior debt and towards kind of or towards preferred equity. But when it comes to tokenization, it goes more towards the equity. So people are taking the same risk you are. So they want to have the same return as you have. So if you're building something and you're gonna make, I don't know, 30% on that project at the end, or 35, and there's not gonna be any returns for 2 years because you're building it, give me 30%. Give me 35%, maybe give me even 40%, because you're not financing the whole thing with that amount of money. And if you give me 40%, I'll give you my money. I'm gonna take that risk.
And you're building your brand.
I'm gonna take the risk.
I'm giving you my
I'm
money.
gonna take the risk.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna give you the whole amount of my portfolio. I'm gonna give you a small portion, and I'm gonna build a relationship with you. And that's the relationship that can happen on chain, and you can capture a lot of market, and then you get things going. But if you come to me and say, you get 7% on a development project, I'm gonna say thank you very much and have fun, right?
Yeah, 100%. And not only that, you have properties that are built properties that are being offered under a plan of an Airbnb or whatever, and the return is something around 4%. Why would anyone do it, guys? Yeah, why would a small investor or a big investor or whoever investor does it? And then you look at, say, there's no takers. There's no market for tokenized property. No. There's no market for tokenized garbage. There is a great market for well tokenized assets that are good assets that are tokenized. Go in today. I'll give you an example. I have a small private fund that I have assigned for tokenized real estate. Why? Because it makes sense to me to buy assets in other markets, and I don't really want to spend millions doing that, and I don't really want to spend things to do things from scratch and research those and you know that most of the time I cannot find enough assets to utilize the money. Do you know that recently I took around 20% of the assigned allocated money to do something else with because I couldn't find enough decent assets? Yeah, take that for example and say, okay, this is a buyer. He is interested in great assets that are tokenized. I'm not interested in rubbish assets that are tokenized, and I will never be. Okay, and I do research the asset and I do understand it well. We had a discussion, Dennis and myself, recently about an asset I've seen and I was interested in it, and I've done the whole research, and I've done the research on how much was it sold for, what's the appreciation that have happened, how much are similar being rented, what's the promised return, and every single detail, and how is it tokenized, and then I look at, is it a valuable asset for me to buy into? Be it a portion of an asset or a full asset, it's the same thing. Similar to how if you're buying stocks of a company, you need to evaluate it as if you're buying the whole company. And that's how you do it. Otherwise, it's gambling, it's not investing. Are you a gambler? So what we're saying today is, guys, whoever is offering, we're talking mainly to everyone. Actually, whoever is buying, buy only good product, because when you only buy good product, you will encourage people to you'll
To supply
create a pushback.
more good
Right?
products. So
Exactly.
if the demand is educated, and that's what we're trying to do, to educate demand, but as well suppliers, right? If you're a real estate developer, if you're a real estate owner, think about what you're offering. Think about if that's an investment that is in line with your expectations as a real estate person, because most probably you are in real estate, right? And a lot of times in real estate, when it comes to investing, especially in development projects, a lot of times there's this term of I'm going to double your money. I'm going to double my money, right? So that's the goal. You know, you go into an investment to double your buy-in. So if you invest 100K, your expectation is to get 200K at the end of the day, at the end of the deal, right? And then the question is the timing, right? Is this in 1 year time? Is it in 2 years? Is 5 years? That's, you know, and I think that's the benchmark, or it should be the benchmark when it comes to projects that are being built or redeveloped or whatever to be resold. So the timing needs to be right. The purchase price needs to be right. That's the most important part, right? And the market needs to be
And if the
liquid. There
money is
needs to be
floating,
demand for this kind of product. So if you're doing it at the wrong time, you're going to fail at achieving that goal, right? But even if you then achieve a half of that, that's a great return, because in the end you've done a great investments already, and so you need to always assess the best scenario and the worst one. But if you come to me with 5% return, I'm not a bank.
and neither will a bank do it. Neither will a bank. And here it's very important, guys. If you're buying into a tokenized future development, if the money is floating, it means you're depending on the individual's ethical, business, and professional um, integrity to make your investment count. And I would say I trust people, and I have great people I trust, and I'm trusted, but I say never trust in that. Trust in a system, not in a person, not because the person is not trustworthy, just because you're putting so much of fixed hopes on a variable. So do not put fixed hopes on something fixed. If the money is floating, be careful. If the money is floating and the promise and the hope is to the future, it means two things are floating. Those are two variables that create a dangerous situation generally and put you in a position that where you may, there's a higher probability of you getting into trouble. It may work once, it may work 10 times, but that's a higher probability that you may get into trouble. And generally, wherever there's easy money, it attracts certain kind of individuals that utilize easy money in a bad way, in a wrong way, not in how you intended to place easy money for. So for all demand and all supply, anyone who wants to tokenize, there is a market for great assets. And today it should be easier, just because if you put out a great asset and you get it to the customers, you create enough exposure to it for customers to know about it, so that they wouldn't think, oh, it's one of those bad assets that are out there. There is a market, so go ahead and do it. Spend the same marketing budget how you do in a conventional manner. Spend a business development budget how you do in a conventional manner. No, it will not sell itself. It isn't meant to do. But if you think of it as a serious business, you put your development there, you put it out there, and you put enough effort behind it, locally or non locally, you will be able to generate a reasonable interest in it. And generally, I believe you'll be positively surprised. And if you are demand, if you are a client, uh, research the asset that you're buying into, the opportunity that you're buying into, and only buy into things that you understand the risk in and you are okay with the risk in. Do not put all your savings into a floating money, floating dream that may happen in the future or may never. That is the approach that you have to take and not take. Um, Dennis, is there anything else you would like to pass on to our community and everyone beyond that, about our subject today?
I think there's just one more thing I'd like to mention here. So we kind of targeted a bit in the conversation, real estate development, so new projects that require financing. We also touched upon a bit existing assets that are kind of being rented out and creating that recurring revenue component to the investment. I think one thing people should know about is when you invest in a real estate token, check the legal terms behind it, right? Really carefully read through them. In our case, when it comes to Blocksquare's or real estate assets tokenized through our protocols and infrastructure, we use this corporate resolution that has clear definitions of what you should be expecting to receive, right? You get a proportion of revenues that the company is generating. And I think here, for people who are not so much in finance, the distinguishment between revenues and profits, it should be understood. So profits are all the revenues minus all the costs minus all the taxes, and then you have profits. So we call them the bottom line part of the balance sheet, right? And then you have the revenues are the top line item. It's what the company makes, what the asset makes. And if you get a percentage, a fixed percentage on what the company or the real estate asset is making, that cannot be manipulated. If the asset has made 100K last year and 70% should have been distributed, and half of it was tokenized, that means that the owner should have distributed 35,000. It's as simple as that. Is there vacancies? You don't care. Is it mismanaged? You don't need to care. It's their problem. But when you're investing in a token that promises you a share of the profits, then you need to know how the revenues,
What's the manager's
what's the
salary?
manager's salary, what the costs are, have all those invoices that came in been properly audited? I mean, are they real? Has a friend of the manager sent an invoice for 2K, for a repair that never was required? So this is the pitfalls of investing in real estate tokens that offer you a share of the profits. You need to be really, really careful what you do. And that's what we're trying with our standardization to mitigate those risks that can happen and have happened in the recent past. I believe there's a case in the US where this was really and it's a big marketplace for tokenized real estate, I believe.
I'm
And
sure it's happening in many
and
parts
it
of the world
happens
as we
even in
speak as well.
traditional, and this happens traditional. I have so many so many friends who invested in restaurants because I started my
Yeah.
entrepreneurial career in the restaurant business, and they've invested kind of on the side with somebody who knows how to run a restaurant, and they invested in the business, right? And it sounds great, but guess what? They're shareholders in a business that is doing marginal profits. So the dividend, nothing. Why? Because the
It's
costs are
actually making
mismanaged.
amazing revenues.
Costs are mismanaged, right? And
Yeah.
that's the
And it
problem.
doesn't have to be an formalist. It doesn't have to be a
No,
plan of the party to abuse
exactly.
you. It may be just a bad management, and there's many bad managers around. Yeah, that is. I believe that we've given a rounded idea about the
Yeah.
subject. We've written about it. You can go to Blocksquare's LinkedIn. You can go to Blocksquare's Medium, and you can see some of the articles that have been put there. You can go to my LinkedIn. You see few articles. Actually, you see more than 15 articles that have been put in over the past 5-6 years about this, and one of which everyone hates that says tokenization, what it's not, and then the other tokenization, an opportunity or a liability or something like that. So because I really sometimes see things that say, "What are you doing, guys? Is it straight theft or what?" Thank you all for being with us. Dennis, do you want to tell anything to our community?
Nothing. Just shout out to everyone involved in Blocksquare, Ocean Point. Thank you for helping us grow. Everything you do every day, it helps us, reach more people, reach more markets. I think the team overall is doing a great job as well. And yeah, as always, I say, hey, activate yourself, become part of our regional hubs program. We need you.
Thank you for your energy. Until next time.